Hi everyone. So previously we have discussed the definition of machine learning. So now let me tell you the what are the types that are present in the machine learning. Actually, machine learning is broadly classified into two types. That is, first one is unsupervised and then supervised. So then there I have a question: what does these two types mean? So let me give you in detail explanation of each type. So first, let us try to understand what is supervised first, because supervised is pretty good than unsupervised. So let me try to explain you what is supervised first. So okay, what is supervised in machine learning? So supervised means here we have some input data and a corresponding output data. That is, as we have seen some example yesterday, in the same way we will have some input data. For example, let us assume that there are two A and B as inputs and D as outputs as yesterday. So 2, 3, and 6 is output, and let us assume 5, 7, 9 is output, and 2, 4, okay, 5 is output. So let us assume this A and B are input variables, and this is output variable. So this is what called as supervised data, because there is an input for the data and the corresponding outputs also given for the data. So if we pass this to a machine learning model M, which takes an test data, that is, for example, this time the AB values are passed as 7 and 9, then the corresponding output is to be predicted. This is not known. So here for the supervised machine learning model, what is given, the input variables are given and the corresponding output variables is not given. So by using this data, the supervised machine learning model have to predict the output for this output variable for this given data. So it assumes that it predicts that the output is, for example, let us assume that output is somewhere 10. So this is known as supervised learning. So keeping that whether the output predicted by our model is right or wrong, what we concentrate here is that that is, we have input data and the corresponding output data. We have input data and corresponding output data. Using this entire input and output data, or this data set, we are training our model. So the model is trained The model is trained using this input data. Once the model is trained with this input data, the user gives the model a test case. The test case is that here we consider the test case 7, 9, and we have to predict the value of D. The value of the D is unknown. So by using this supervised data, the model tries to calculate this D value. So by using so many approaches like linear regression, decision trees, etc. approaches, the model tries to predict the correct label. The model tries to predict the correct label for the following data. This is what called supervised learning. So okay, as I said, you can observe here, right? This is a definition part. Okay, I don't want to concentrate on definition part this time, because definition, understanding this thing in definition is not a big deal. You can easily understand this thing in definition. So what I'm trying to show is that the example that is given here, you can see that there is some data and the corresponding labels, in the sense this is some input data and this is corresponding output data for the given input data, which is called as labels. So which is passed to the model training to a machine learning model, and there it goes under prediction. So what happens is the test data, because now this shape is given. For example, the shape rectangle and the triangle are the two test cases. This is test case 1 and this test case 2 is given. So the model, by using these label data, the model tries to predict that for this first diagram, the model predicts that it's a square. Just the model predicts that it's a square. Whereas for the second diagram, the model predicts that it's a triangle. So as in the supervised learning, we have input data and the corresponding output data that is given to the model, and the prediction occurs and the corresponding output will be generated. So let us assume this is an unsupervised data. So how do we say that this is unsupervised data? Because for the unsupervised data, we will be only given the AB values. Okay, let me change the color so that we could. So for unsupervised data, we would only be given AB values. So we will not be given this D value. This D value is not given, which is the output variable. The output variable for this is not given. So only the input variable for the data are given. So what we will do with the input variables for the data? So actually in the previous case, if there is a corresponding output variable, we will try to predict the output variable by using some model. The model tries to predict. But what should we do in case of this unsupervised data? Because we don't have any output variable, so to supervise us. So right, we don't have any output variable to supervise us. So in this case, we would try to understand some patterns in the data. So for suppose, let us assume the AB values will go on so on like this. So we draw the AB values on the graph in a two-dimensional graph. This is also called as a scatter plot. Let us assume the points are scattered like this. So, okay, let me tell you one thing. Don't assume that the points are colorly differentiated. No, I just drew them different colors. So it makes you understand that these appears to be different things. Okay. So, okay, let us try to understand. So when we try to observe the data, we can observe some kind of grouping in the data. So if you can see that there is one kind of group here, and there is second group here, and the third group is here. So if you try to understand this data, this is unsupervised data, if you try to understand the data, we would try to predict this type of patterns. Let us assume that this is some label 1, this is label 2, and label 3. So the data is falling into labels here. I mean, the labels in the sense the data is getting separated here. So when you observe the unsupervised learning here, the example states that we have only input data. There is no output data or labels. Here we have this input data and we pass it to the model. The model tries to predict some output. So the output is that it tries to, as I said in the previous graphical example, the model tries to differentiate the patterns. So here we observe that the data contains the apple and the watermelon. So what the model tries to do, it tries to group the apples as one label and watermelon as another label. So this is what we are achieving in the unsupervised learning. We are trying to find the groups or patterns